Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Welcome to Nightlight, everybody. So glad you could join us tonight. I have a very, very special book we're going to be talking about tonight, and I hope you have the time to listen to this interview and then go find the book. The book is called Hope and Heart, A Quantum Leap into the Aquarian Age, and it's written by Phoenix Rose. Her sensitive and thought-provoking poetry reveals her love and attunement with nature and all life. It's augmented by her burgeoning artistic endeavors. Her selections transport you to a peaceful world of awe and wonderment of being while reflecting within yourself with every page turned. In tumultuous times, like we're going through now, might hope be an acronym for holding only positive expectations, and with heart, harmonious empathy always rings true. Journey through a poetry and prose anthology about hope, love, self-reflection, and a new understanding of consciousness and science. Hope and Heart, A Quantum Leap into the Aquarian Age, is a reflection of Phoenix's 50 years a student of metaphysics, a longtime Rosicrucian, amateur astrologer, and lover of science and nature. It's an amazing book, and it's one of the few books that I've, interviewed people with of poetry. This poetry is special because all of the poems are inspired. You can tell they're inspired by the feeling that resonates inside of you when you read them. I had to kind of read it through quite fast because I only had a week. These are the kind of poems that you read, you sit with, you reflect on, and you apply the emotions that they awaken within you to your own life to give you inspiration and joy, insight, and hope. And it's definitely an adventure. I highly recommend it. It's the kind of book that you want to share with people who are going through difficult times, or it's the kind of book that you want to read yourself when you're looking for a little greater joy within your life, because these poems do awaken within you amazing thoughts. They're inspirational. And I have to tell you, there are many times that I put the book down and sat there and drifted into my memories of the past and also my hopes for the future. So it's the kind of book that everybody can benefit from. And, it's not 900 pages. It's a very conservative amount of pages, so that it's the kind of book you can read, put down, reflect, come back to in a day or two and read another one of her poems. And her artwork is just amazing as well. So you know that working within this woman is a spiritual portal of insight into the realms that are beyond the physical reality. And it's a joy to have her on the show. Welcome to the show, Phoenix.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for that lovely introduction, and welcome to you and all of your listeners. It's a pleasure to be here.
I think you've done a very brave thing, and most authors would not do it. You've used a nom de plume. You have not used your actual name, and I think that is probably one of the wisest things any author can do, because now when they read your work, they're not thinking of you as a person. They're going into the material you've given them to read and to reflect on, and they're not thinking about the person, where you live, how many children you have, whether you're married or not, do you have dogs, cats, goldfish, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But they're left with your words and insight and inspiration, as opposed to curiosity about the person. So was that at the heart of the reason that you chose to use Phoenix Rose instead of your actual name, or are there other reasons as well?
Well, actually, I think sometimes it's good to have a certain amount of anonymity, to seem to fade into the background and not be about oneself. Basically, I'm a private, often shy person. I love people, and I can be, I can have good time at a party, but I also enjoy my time alone, because that's often when I either meditate, listen to music, sketch, or write notes for a new poem or new thoughts that I have. So it's good to reflect within, and that's one of the mainstream topics of and thoughts behind this book. I think it's important to be yourself, to trust and believe in yourself, and to listen to your intuition, for example, to be open to new ideas. And heaven knows, since we're entering the Aquarian age, this is going to be a lot of new ideas coming to us, and a new worldview and a new understanding of how the universe actually works. In other words, we're at a crossroads.
Oh, yeah.
If people hadn't already guessed that.
Anybody who turns on the news and listens for 5 minutes knows that. I think one of the fascinating things about your book is I love poetry, and I have written it myself, but never to the degree that you have. And how does it happen? I mean, when I have written poetry, usually I get a first line or something like that. But how does it work with you? Do you sit down with a thought and then try to write about that thought, or do you get a line or a rhyme or something? How does it work with you?
In different ways. It just, there's a spontaneity involved with poetry, and there's a freedom, as I'm sure you've experienced. There's a sense of taking flight, really. It's sort of a birthing of ideas that you might have, or that I might have, sort of capturing either a memory, a feeling, or, as you say, sometimes just a word, an emotion, and then transitioning whatever it is that you're feeling or thinking about to pen and paper. And I usually handwrite at least my first version. Often it's on a scrap of paper somewhere, and I try to be receptive and to be observant as well. Both of those are key. Most of my poems are fairly short, and it doesn't usually take me too long to do them, although I may tweak a word or a phrase here or there, but I try to let my inner self lead me. Sometimes there's a stream of consciousness approach, but not always. A poem or a piece of art, an artwork, can be overworked at times. So the trick is to know when to put down the pen or the brush, as the case may be. Often I play ocean sounds on a sound machine I have. I prefer to be at the beach, but that's usually not possible where I'm landlocked here. But when you're at the beach, for example, or anywhere in nature, it's meditative and it's calming. And there's, you mentioned it, there's sort of like a dreaminess or an altered receptive state that can sort of manifest. And it's a cleansing thing, too, to be able to get this out of your mind and your emotions, and it's cathartic. And that depends, of course, on the energy of what I'm writing about.
I know
many
that,
of my poems are about nature.
Yeah, I noticed that, and of course, when you were talking about being near the ocean and popping the seaweed, oh my God, that took me back to my childhood and being by the beach, and I lived by the water for a very long time, and just the smell of low tide took me back. I mean, I smelled low tide when I read that poem. I really did. It was oh my goodness. It was a trip down memory lane for sure. I know that.
Can you hear a foghorn in the background?
Just about. I think what everything that you've said, if people were paying attention, and I'm sure they were, you're basically allowing something to happen as opposed to thinking and of making something happen. And that's what I found so magical about your poetry. It was very obvious that you were not thinking, I have to write a poem about this and this, and so just give me this material. It's a free flow. You can feel it in the poetry, and it's magical.
Well, thank you. We are all part of nature, and nature is everywhere, and we should be embracing nature and studying her very carefully. Just as the artist studies things, we should be out there feeling the breezes, watching the birds, smelling the smells that are in the air, using all of our senses to enjoy the beauty that is around us, that surrounds us from our birth, and make the most of that. Every breath that we take should remind us that we are part of nature, because she's life itself.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think also today, in these times when things are so crazy and upsetting and confusing, and there's so much going on, there's chaos everywhere, it's important to look to nature, because that is a healing source of energy, if ever there was one. And anybody can take a walk in the forest, or a walk along the beach, or a walk along a babbling brook, and letting nature help to bring down the energy stress that is going on, because this is a stressful time. There's no doubt about it. But
we need to balance ourselves. Oh, sorry.
Exactly. And I think what the biggest message I got from your book was that even in times like this where it's so chaotic, everyone has the opportunity to open themselves up to this kind of healing energy that is available to everyone. And it's important for people to understand that you don't have to struggle as hard. You have options of opening yourself up to this kind of creativity and magic that you have. And they don't have to write poetry. They can write anything they like, or they can just draw. And I think the message that I got such hope out of your book, because it was basically saying no matter what happens, you have the option of tapping into this kind of energy and flowing through whatever difficulties come your way.
And we have more creativity than we realize. We have talents within us that they're just lying right below the surface, and we haven't even tapped into them. And I encourage people to just try different things. because it's a way to create your own clarity of thinking and speaking and living, for that matter. And we get to know ourselves better through poetry. She's like a bosom buddy or a kindred spirit. So I definitely like to write uplifting, optimistic subjects. There's already enough negativity and depression in the world. So
you had you had at the beginning of your book a beautiful poem. It wasn't yours, but it was a beautiful poem, and
Shall I read it?
Yes, would you share it with us, please?
I would be pleased to. I have it right here. It's written by James Dillett Freeman, and he wrote many poems over the years for Unity Village, for the Daily Word little booklet that would come out monthly. My mother used to get it and send it to me. And this one is called On Our Way. I am a wandering wanderer, as much as you and you. What is this strange but wonderful world that we wander through? Where did I come from? What am I? Where is it that I go? I find few waymarks in the wood, but this one thing I know. I shall not lack for what I need to go the journey's length. A curious inward compass, a frail but certain strength, have borne me, and I do not doubt, although I cannot see, will bear me up and bear me on across eternity.
I mean, that just speaks volumes to everybody, and it's a message, that I think everybody should pay attention to. But the other one that I fell in love with was The Solitary Walk, which is yours.
And shall I read that?
Yeah, that one as well is beautiful.
Okay, I have that right here. Okay. Yes, I'll just say that I had lived up in a mountain area, and it was really more of a hill, but they called it a mountain. But there were woods and trails all around, and a lake in one area as well. But beautiful views of one of the Great Lakes and lights across the way. So it's called Solitary Walk. Just off the lane, though you must look with care, a narrow pathway emerges, beckons gently uphill, is hard-packed and bare. Follow, and light stress it quickly purges. For into the woods you are instantly thrust, and the coolness and silence abound. Gazing up the tall trunks, you simply trust that their roots hold them fast in the ground. Row on row, past Trillium you go, into the pines so tall, that protect and surround, as if wishing you to know and sense the sanctity of this hall. Sometimes a dream state creeps into the mind, and the spirits of indigenous peoples seem to speak in the breeze that whispers softly through the pines, or the low chuckling of nearby Silver Creek. The trees, like temple columns old, stand in reverence 'neath the sky, begging one to reflect on mysteries told and await an inward answer to why. Yet, as the sun shines down through the pines, gracing woodrows and fallen cones, its warmth and their incense both combine, and you know you'll never really walk alone.
To me, that's almost like the poem of the footsteps in the sand. It's reminding you that that there is a presence above and beyond everything else that is always there to touch into and take solace from. And
exactly.
it's important to remember that. And I think that's what your book does. It reminds people of the spirit they carry within. It reminds people of the fact that this is an experienced lifetime. It's not the only lifetime. And whatever you gather will give you wisdom for the next one, hopefully.
That's right. And I firmly believe that it's important to read poetry out loud. You hear the rhythm, the cadence, the sound, even the emotion better when you read it out loud. It resonates, and it's everything is vibratory anyhow in the world, and it stimulates the vibrations within your own self and allows for that to resonate, and it's healing, I believe.
Oh, absolutely. And there are some poems that I have read into my phone so that if I'm in a place of stress, I can play them to myself and remind myself of they, like you said, they have a rhythm, and if you can get that rhythm going within yourself, you can be calm, you can be peaceful, you can transcend whatever it is you're going through.
Yes, indeed. It's I really hope that any readers of my book will become more self-reflective and gain joy and confidence as a result. We need times to calm ourselves, and with all of the stress that we've been through in the past few years, it's needed now more than ever.
I totally agree. And not only that, but I think that the other thing that is important for everybody to remember is that creativity is the key to opening up to so much more material that you carry within yourself. But you don't have to be good at anything. You just have to take joy out of doing it. Many years ago, I joined a church choir because I love to sing. Now I'm tone deaf, so you can imagine how I sing. But see, any church has to take you in the choir. They can't tell you can't sing. and I can't tell you the high I would get from putting my voice into what the choir was overwhelming. But it gave me such a sense of joy and excitement and love and compassion. It was amazing. And, it was one of those experiences that I will never forget. I know that when I was in college, I went through Rush, and I wanted to join one of the sororities, and it happened to be a black one. And I wanted to join it because I loved the singing. And they told me I couldn't. They told me I could not join, and I said that's racist. And they said no, not because you're white. I said, well, what is it? He said you can't sing.
Oh dear.
Yeah, well, they were right. Well, they were right. But it's music is an amazing way of soothing your senses and taking you to another place. And I think that so many people will say, well, I can't draw and I can't write and I can't do this and I can't do that. You can. It doesn't mean that you're going to sell it, but if it gives you joy doing it, that's the important thing. And for those of us that, write books and stuff, we do it because it's a way of expressing how we feel and hope that someone else will get the same feeling from it. But the real purpose is getting the energy out there, because once the energy's out there, you never know who it's going to touch. You just have no idea.
This is very true. I remember a meditation that I used to listen to that talked about if you drop a pebble into a pond and the ripples go out in concentric circles, you never know what shores they're going to teach or touch, rather. And that certainly is true for any words that you might have. And I think that's another important thing for people to be aware of. The words that we say can be so hurtful if they're cutting or not kind. And so being careful of what we say is very, very important. And there's another poem that I would love to share that is not my own again. But this one is about how thoughts are things, and that what we think can affect us and others so much. And it's a poem entitled "You Can Never Tell" by Ella Wheeler Wilcox, who was a Rosicrucian back at the turn of the centuries, at the 1900s. And this is a short stanza from that poem. You can never tell. You can never tell what a thought will do in bringing you hate or love. For thoughts are things, and their airy wings are swifter than carrier doves. They follow the law of the universe. Each thing must create its kind. They follow the track to bring you back whatever went out from your mind. So this is a cautionary thing that for people to be most respectful of what they think and what they say, because we create karma for ourselves. We create good karma and we create negative karma, depending upon what the message is that we put out. So I always try to think. I used to listen to Disney shows when I was a young child, and Jiminy Cricket would say, always let your conscience be your guide. And another axiom was, I've forgotten it now. Always let your conscience be your guide. Gosh, it went right out of my head. You know how that goes.
I do. But you know, it's true, and I think that the other thing that many people who have a religious background and have the Ten Commandments, you know, that they will repeat over and over and over again. I did a church service once where I was talking about the Ten Commandments, and I said, is there anyone here who has never broken any of these? And, you know, hands went up all over the place. And I said, well, let's think about this a second. Let's take one of the biggies, you know, thou shalt not kill. Anybody here, have any of you killed anyone? I said, let's everybody put your hands up if you've never killed someone, and everybody did. I said, now, if I mention something that you have done, put your hands down. Have you ever killed somebody's thought? Have you ever taken somebody's excitement away from them? Have you ever taken the joy out of someone because you thought they were wrong? And I went on and on and on, and before you knew it, everybody's hand was down. And I said, there's more here than just the words. There's meaning. And especially with poetry, there is that sense of, first you're given a rhythm that you can get into, and then you're given thoughts that are so profound and so intensive that they wake up intuition within other people. And, you know, for people that you know, most people are going to say poetry, they can't write because they just can't rhyme and stuff like that. Well, free verse poetry was invented for people like that, and
for sure.
And it's an exciting thing to create with words, to play with words, to find new meanings and ways of expressing them, and I think that your book is an amazing example of how words can open up parts of you that you didn't know were closed. And I'm not suggesting everybody go out and write a poetry book, though if you feel like doing it, go ahead. But the thing is, everyone has creative energy. Everyone is creative in multitudes of different ways. And getting that creativity to flow through you opens you up to the inspiration and the insight that is carried within. We have magic inside of ourselves, and there are lots of different ways of opening to it, but reading poetry is certainly another way of doing it. And you definitely have painted pictures that resonated with me, and I am sure anybody who reads your poetry is going to feel the same thing, because quite clearly it was inspired. And by inspired, I mean channeled, I mean it's soul writing. There are lots of words for it, but it was coming from a different place inside of you. You weren't thinking, I'm going to write a poem about this or that. You waited for something to come.
It's true. There were times where it just sort of happened, and I didn't know how it happened, but it just got done. So I guess that's what you'd call it, a form of being a receptivity and being an openness to creativity. And people would, if they would just take a deep breath and try, just write down some little thing, just a little ditty and a little jingle, and it just feels good to get something out and try it. And I encourage people to do that. I had my first poem was written back in 4th grade, and it was an in-class assignment on poetry, and my teacher didn't like the surprise ending that I put on it, based on the red marks that were on the paper when it was returned to me, she didn't understand what I was trying to do, and it took me a long time to get over that, but I did, and I've been writing ever since. Not so much poetry at one time, but more recently.
Look at Dr. Seuss. I mean, now there is poetry there, but and with messages like crazy, and I think that oh yeah, I mean, just amazing stuff there. And you look at people that have actually created something, and many people will say, well, that's easy to do. Well, no, it's not. I mean, but there are lots of ways of opening yourself up to this kind of material. Meditation is certainly one way of doing that. And
Indeed.
Whether you're doing a sitting meditation or a walking meditation or a dancing meditation, meditation has so many different forms that it's really quite amazing. Now you became involved with Rosicrucianism.
I did, yes, very young.
How were you drawn into that? That's an amazing philosophy.
Well, I do feel it was one of those things that I was meant to experience and may have experienced in a prior life. It was through my in-laws that I learned about the Rosicrucian order, and it appealed to me immediately. The Rosicrucian order is educational, philosophical, non-dogmatic, cultural, it's humanitarian, and it's a charitable organization. And it's an ancient organization that represents the combined work of many great minds over the centuries. And the way it's disseminated, it's now online home studies where we study natural and universal laws of nature. And these enables a student, because we always consider ourselves students, we're never, there's always more to learn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a very practical study, and it can lead to true prosperity and peace of mind. It's not a religion, and there's no attempt to define divinity, despite the sound of its name. Rosicrucian stands for the Rosy Cross, and Amorc is the official name, which is the ancient mystical order Rosae Crucis. And the cross predates Christianity, as I think many people know. The cross, of course, represents the human body, while the rose stands for the individual's gradually opening consciousness through their aspiration. So traditionally, the order began back in Egypt in the ancient mystery schools around 1450 BC. And at that time, the learned ones were seeking answers to the whys of life and death, questions people still ask today.
Oh, yeah.
It appeared in the actual history books in Germany in the early 17th century. And before that, there were Greek philosophers like Pythagoras and Thales, and other Roman philosophers as well, who traveled to Egypt and were initiated there. And then they brought the knowledge that they had back to Europe, where it spread.
I was wondering when I saw your name if there was deeper meaning in what you chose to name yourself.
Well, okay, so that back in around 2006, I took an online course in writing, and it included a poetry section. And after our group had written a number of poems, we were asked to submit our favorite poems to possibly be published in their little, the way they disseminated it online. And we were asked to choose a pen name. So I was reflecting on that, on what to choose or how to make a name. And it occurred to me that everyone seems to have something of a they come to a fork in the road where there's, okay, do I go this way or that way? Sort of like Robert Frost's famous poem. And so when you have to make a choice, and when you make that choice, one of the other falls away and dies, and then you rise from the ashes going the other direction, much like the mystical phoenix. So I had such an experience where I had to make a choice at one time in my life, and that was where I came up with the name Phoenix Rose. I rose from the ashes.
Okay, that makes sense. When I saw your name, it was like, well, there's more behind it than just Phoenix Rose. There's the rising of the phoenix from the ashes. But the rose, I had a feeling, had something to do with your Rosicrucianism.
Indeed. I mean, there's multiple meanings and different things. So, yes, the cover of my book has the title, Hope and Heart, A Quantum Leap into the Aquarian Age. And below that is a single atom. And in the center of the atom, instead of a nucleus, there is an opening heart-shaped rose. That's the cover of my book. So that's symbolic, and you can read different things into it. It can be a duality of the physical being the atomic part and the spiritual being the heart within the center. And, you can go on and find other meanings. So, yes, symbolism is important in mystical work.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
and I think also when you got into the quantum physics part, I'm semi-familiar with quantum physics, and to me, it's always been a little laughable that scientists have trouble with consciousness, and I mean it's really cool. You can't explain it, but it's really there. And as we go forward in time, they are becoming closer and closer, to connecting to the quantumness, to the fact that it is not just physical. There is something above and beyond the physical that has no explanation, but is there.
Well, science, of course, feels that it has the answers to everything, and yet they really don't even know what energy is. And I'm trying to remember if in the introduction it was mentioned that this book is an anthology of both poetry and prose, and the centerpiece of the prose section is a commentary that I wrote entitled Quantum Hope, a Paradigm Shift in Science. Mm-hmm. And the issue for science, well, how do I put this? Well, they try to figure out how the non-physical and the physical interact.
Yeah.
And this interaction between mind and body is a problem for them. So
I loved Einstein saying, I loved Einstein saying that part, you get to one point and he said, that's the spooky stuff,
Yes. Interestingly enough, Albert Einstein said, the most beautiful, this is a quote, the most beautiful and most profound emotion we can experience is the sensation of the mystical. It is the sower of all true science. And I just found, end quote, I found those were surprising and powerful words from a man of science who obviously was also a mystic.
Oh, yeah.
And he had a hard time accepting quantum physics at first, and he had a hard time accepting his own findings about relativity. But then the penny dropped, and he finally got it right. But yes, it's
it is fascinating to see how science does struggle to explain it all, and it's a good thing to want to have an explanation, but it's also a good thing to have mystery. And when there's mystery, then our minds go crazy with the potential of what's out there and what it could be. And I don't think that if you ever could tack it down and nail it down and say, there it is, I would be so disappointed that, first of all, anybody nailed it down. But that, there always has to be the mystery, or there's no purpose to life, really.
Barbara, there's always going to be mysteries. They find out they just make one discovery, and then there are 10 more things that they have questions about. There's always going to be mystery and questions. And there's another quote, let me think. It's from T.S. Eliot, that we're always going to be searching, and I don't have the quote in front of me right now, but we're always going to be searching, and the end of all of our searching will be to find where we started and know the place for the first time. That was a rough quote. So searching is good and necessary, and that's how we discover new things. But the one thing that was discovered by theoretical quantum physicist Dr. Amit Goswami, who I know has been on your show a few times, he and other theoretical quantum physicists have determined that consciousness, not matter, is the ground of all being. And of course, this is exactly opposite of what the materialist scientists, the traditional scientists, mainstream science says today. So this is a big stumbling block for them right now. But because science is actually starting to study science or study the quantum aspects of things through quantum aspects, so they're all wrapped up in trying to figure that, and consciousness, how do they tie that in? So they're stumbling around trying to figure that out, and theoretical quantum physicists are stirring the pot and making it known they're not going away. Niels Bohr, who was an early physicist, said, if you're not puzzled when you first encounter quantum physics, you couldn't possibly have understood it. You see,
true.
Quantum physics made an appearance after Sir Isaac Newton's laws of physics of the 17th century, which we use every day in our macro world. They show that things, what is objective and what is predictable, and we're comfortable with this. There's order, and people like order. Then enter quantum physics, which denies objectivity. It deals only with what is probable. So there were many questions and paradoxes, and science can't allow paradoxes because it means there's something wrong with the premise. For example, how could a subatomic wave also be a particle? So, the Industrial Revolution gave rise to the world having confidence in order, and quantum physics is upsetting that notion. Back in as far back as 1934, I believe, astrophysicist James Jeans, who was a contemporary of Einstein, said the world seems less like a giant machine and more like a giant's thought. And giving them a shake-up. And then in more recent years, Irvin Laszlo, who was an eminent thinker, he's in his 90s too, and he was a two-time nominee for the Nobel Peace Prize, said, quantum physicists revive an ancient wisdom. We are all connected through our participation in the world's one consciousness. We hear that a lot now, that all is one.
Yes.
And immaterial consciousness seems to be the unifying factor because there's many, many layers and degrees of consciousness. If you ask a medical doctor what consciousness is, they'd probably say, well, it's somebody that's not in a coma. But we know it's a lot more than that, those of us who have studied.
It's true. Well, your book covers so much ground and so much material. What is it? What is your bottom line? Every author, every creator has a purpose to writing, on top of getting to whatever it is that's inside of them out so they can sleep at night. What was your purpose for putting this book out there and setting it loose on reality?
Oh, gosh. I really want people to trust their intuition, to go within themselves and meditate. The answers are within each of us. I want people to build self-confidence. Think of Dorothy in the Land of Oz. That is actually a metaphor for a spiritual journey.
Oh, yeah.
To go within, because you've got the lion who thought he needed courage, the Tin Man who didn't have a heart, he didn't think, and the lion who needed courage, lion, and the
Scarecrow.
The Scarecrow didn't think he was very smart. Well, he was the smartest one of the group. The lion was the lion was the most courageous, and the Tin Man certainly was emotional with the tears that rusted his tin. So
yeah.
we all should know that the answers are within us, and we need to light our own fire within to be inspired. And I encourage people to keep an open mind, be willing to replace old thoughts they have when new ones come that challenge them and prove to be true. Eliminate fear. Fear is a destroyer, and we don't need it. We need to build optimism and have faith that we have the answers within ourselves, and that courage is there too. Oh gosh, there's just so much more I could.
Well,
I could say.
I think one of the other very profound, magical things about this book is that, where do the proceeds go when people actually do buy it?
Yes, I had shared with you that all of the proceeds go to humanitarian and philanthropic organizations. I have been so blessed in this life, and I just wish to give back. And so they go to either climate and wetlands in particular, to food banks, to animal rescue, to women's shelters, whatever I can find. So
I think that in itself is another message for the book. It's out there, but it's service. It's your way of serving, and that whoever buys the book serves as well. It's too bad they can't call it a charitable donation, but it means that would be cool. But it means that not only is somebody serving humanity by buying the book, they are serving humanity by becoming a better person if they read the book. Because I don't believe anybody could read this book and not become a better person.
Well, thank you. I'd love to read one more poem, if I might.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm going to read If Only. If having less would mean being more, what would we be willing to give up? Is material stuff enough? Or would we imagine something else could fill our cup? So it runneth over, and we see a different thing might be at our core. If we meditate, envision, and then glean that happiness is of our mind's creation, that love is more than just a kiss or sex, and happiness shifts with vocalization, until true love is seen as something that connects us back to source and its creative theme. If only we would reconnect with nature, seeing beauty and perfection in each view. If only we would truly love our neighbor. If we'd forgive all slights and rather sculpture and craft a tolerance of peace anew, humanity might once again have more.
That's a beautiful thought and prayer.
Thank you.
And I think we'll end at that. That can't top that one. Um, if somebody wants to get a hold of you or buy your book, where can they do that, and how do they get a hold of you?
My website is www.phoenixrose.ca. That's PHOENIXROSE.ca. The book is available through online booksellers like Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Kindle, Kobo, Indigo Chapters. And it's also available through my website and also my publisher, balboapress.com, which is a division of Hay House. So it's been a pleasure to share this time with you, Barbara, and all of your listeners, and I thank you very much.
Well, the pleasure has been mine, and I will remind everybody that there will be another show next Monday and all sorts of exciting things happening, so do stay tuned. Come back again, or check the website and see what else is going on. I do believe Solaris and I are going to be attempting another show this Sunday. So stay tuned, stay in touch, and have a wonderful evening. And stay cool for sure. Good night, everybody.